From the health pros and cons to its ancient history, stay tuned to number 1 to find out 10 facts about vegetarianism. Number 10. Most vegetarians fail at being vegetarians. Let's be very honest here. The reason that most people become vegetarians is because they want to live a healthier life. And to that end, it's a noble endeavor. But there's just one problem. Any diet or change in meal style requires commitment. Not just to eating better, but sticking to the plan that you have laid out for yourself. And not surprisingly, a lot of people can't do that. Sure, they'll make a New Year's resolution to become a vegetarian, and they'll start off that way. But then they'll crave some of their former diet or get a whiff of a burger joint and say, "I'll go back just for this meal." And then they're done. This is human nature, but what's surprising is that a study was recently done on vegetarians, and it was discovered that around 84% of people in America who try to be vegetarians revert to their old ways in under a year. To be fair, some of it wasn't as simple as not doing the deed, but rather there were relationships that brought them back to meat and other things. Finances, health, yeah, that makes sense, and other personal reasons. So don't fault a person for trying to be a vegetarian, but do congratulate anyone who can keep to their commitments. Number 9. India equals vegetarian. There are always contrasts to people all over the world. What works in one country won't work in another, and vice versa. One culture may embody something much more than another culture would. So what's surprising here is that there is a country in the world that is highly associated with being vegetarian, as a majority of their people choose that lifestyle, and that country is India. Now, those who know the history of India know that they're a very spiritual nation and that they've fought hard for their freedom, which may have led them to being one to appreciate the food style that is vegetarian. However, what might surprise you is how much of the vegetarian population is Indian. In fact, it's 70%. 10% would have been surprising. 25% would have been shocking. But 70% of the vegetarian world are Indian? That's a lot, especially considering the massive population size of India. History shapes us in many ways, and this proves it without a doubt. And many associate the origins of being vegetarian to both India and Greece. Number 8. The many reasons. Before we talk about the many reasons of vegetarianism, take a moment to like this video and join the Zero to Hero community by using the buttons below. When I say the word vegetarian, what do you think of? Yes, you think of a person who eats only vegetables and other non-meat products. But what about why they are vegetarian? Well, the obvious answer is that they want to eat better and be more healthy. But the truth is, while that is a very big motivator for some people becoming vegetarian, it's hardly the only one. In fact, there are numerous reasons why people become vegetarian, it just depends on who the person is. A very popular one that has arisen in the last couple of decades is that of people who become vegetarian due to the treatment of animals. After all, if you eat meat, that meat has to come from an animal. And there have been many cases of animals being abused and mistreated in order to get the most meat from the product and the most profit from those who would buy it. Then there are people who don't eat meat because of religious beliefs or because of cultural or family traditions. There are a wide array of reasons to become a vegetarian, and in the end, the choice is up to each person. Number 7. The Pythagorean diet? When you hear the word Pythagorean, you likely think of the Pythagorean theorem, which is a very popular math equation in the world today, and for good reason. But the surprising fact of the matter is that Pythagorean was also associated with what would today be considered being vegetarian. Oh yeah, the Greeks were big into this, and all because of him, more or less. And it was only in the 19th century that vegetarian became a term around the world. Before then, it was the Pythagorean diet. But here's the trick, you see. Pythagorean was a brilliant man, but the reason he became a vegetarian was rather weird. You see, he believed that humans, after they die, would be resurrected as animals. And since you eat animals, you technically are eating your ancestors. And that idea did not please him at all, so he dedicated himself to eating plants, honey, and bread. Technically speaking, when he tried to showcase his Pythagorean diet, he was met with resistance. the Greek culture had a long-time love of meat for various reasons, so abandoning it was, well, wrong to them. But he did have some followers, and thus the diet was allowed to spread until they became known as vegetarians. Number 6. 6 degrees of vegetarian. Much like there are various levels of government, academics, sports, and more, there are also different levels of vegetarianism. I know, right? You think that it's just as simple as don't eat meat, but it's not. There are spin-offs and offshoots that people follow, and that makes them all a type of vegetarian even if they don't follow the same rules. You already know of a big one, vegan. The difference between a vegetarian and a vegan is that a vegetarian will eat products that come from animals, but not eat the animal itself. This would include items such as milk or cheese. A vegan, on the other hand, won't touch any food that has come as an animal byproduct, so they'll only eat and drink things that are born from nature and nature alone. Another offshoot of that is fruitarianism, where a person only eats fruits, nuts, seeds, and plants without killing said plants, of course. So if you want to be a vegetarian, that's fine, just be sure you know what you want to be. It will heavily affect what you eat. Number 5. Vegetarians do eat meat at times. You might be looking at this title and going, wait a minute, that's not right. Vegetarians don't eat meat. And you're right. And you're wrong. As I noted earlier, there are various levels of being vegetarian, and there are some out there who truly believe that it's okay to eat meat in moderation. A great example of this is when a vegetarian goes from being fully devoted to eating in moderation. They'll eat meat, but because of the lifestyle that they had before, they'll refuse to eat as much meat as they used to. So they're still a type of vegetarian, just not the one you're expecting. Of course, there are some who take this a bit weird, such as kangatarians. What's a kangatarian? Well, it's a group that only eats kangaroo meat. Don't ask me how they get it, I don't want to know. But what I do know is this actually happens, and I'm glad I'm not one of them. What's their justification for eating the meat? Well, they claim that because there are no farms or containment areas for kangaroos, which is true, it doesn't count as much as harming animals. They also think that they're greener than other animals that are used for meat products. What a world. Number 4. Smarter kids to become vegetarians? If you put enough scientists into a room, they'll eventually think of a theory that sounds incredibly crazy, and yet they'll find enough evidence to prove that it's true. In the case of the United Kingdom, there's a study that claims that a child with an incredibly high IQ will become vegetarian once they grow older. While this sounds crackpot, there are plenty of smart people out there who are also vegetarians. That's just the truth. But obviously not all kids fall under this stereotype or umbrella. The idea is somewhat intriguing though, that they'll be smart enough to either determine that they need to eat healthier or go the activist route and eat non-meat products in order to respect the animals of the world. Either way, it's surprising that someone even thought of this. Number 3. Being a vegetarian does help your body. You often hear of plans to help you get healthier, but the question almost always arises, does it actually work? And this certainly has been asked of those who partake in being vegetarian. Now, the obviousness of eating greens versus a lot of meat in order to be healthy is obvious. What isn't obvious, though, is that it helps your metabolism in a big way. Because the meat isn't weighing down your body, the metabolism speeds up, and thus you process other foods better. And through that, you lose weight, get more energy, and more. If you are a vegetarian, you burn fat 16% faster than a person who eats meat. That's the difference between losing a few pounds and a lot of pounds. So yeah, being a vegetarian is definitely good for your body. Number 2. Being a vegetarian can hurt your body. That being said, there's a catch to not eating meat. Or in other words, being very basic with what you eat. Your body requires a lot of vitamins and minerals in order to function properly. One of them is B12, which can be found in various products, but mainly meat, fish, and dairy. As noted earlier, there are forms of vegetarianism that require you to not eat these things, and thus you're depriving your body of B12. While it's true that you can get B12 as an individual vitamin, the amount that you would take isn't enough to supplement what you actually need. And not having B12 can lead to depression, fatigue, weakness, nausea, constipation, anemia, heart disease, and even stroke. Vegans suffer the most from B12 deficiency, So if you're going to be a vegetarian or a vegan, you best get ready to get your B12 in some fashion and monitor your health regularly. Number 1. Vegans and vegetarians fight. Often. It's part of human nature to not like someone that doesn't share your values. And it's true that vegetarians and non-vegetarians don't get along. But what's truly surprising is that vegans and vegetarians apparently don't get along either. But shouldn't that not be the case because they have the same values, you might be asking? Well, not exactly. Remember, vegans don't use any products that come from animals. Vegetarians don't mind as much in some cases, like dairy and other such byproducts. In the eyes of vegans, it's the vegetarians, not the meat eaters, that are the biggest threat to their animal rights causes. In a way, vegetarians are kind of a middle ground in this food debate, and vegans don't appreciate that middle ground. Everyone's got a viewpoint, and sometimes that's the only viewpoint they want to see. What do you think about vegetarianism? Let us know in the comments below, and take care.